around it. Based on these factors, it needs to be able to make smart and safe driving decisions in the real world. And once you get in the car, you start to get a real feel for the way the technology works and what it's like in real driving situations. So there are a few things that have to happen before the car can safely drive itself. First, it has to figure out its location in the world. So we use GPS, but GPS isn't always that accurate, which is why we rely on our other sensors like the laser, which picks up on details in the environment that help us identify our more precise location. So think of the sensors as the car's eyes and ears, but with eyes that can see far off into the distance and 360 degrees around the car. And the great thing about having all these sensors is that they can talk to each other and get cross-checked information about the environment. So while we take in a ton of information using our sensors, it's our software that really processes all of this and differentiates between objects. All these objects are visible on the laptop that the safety drivers use while testing the vehicles. Based on what the vehicle senses and processes, these objects will be represented by different colored boxes. Cyclists will be red, pedestrians yellow, and the vehicles will appear as either green or pink. These boxes demonstrate the processing that takes place within the software. And think about the complexity.
Autonomous cars will affect our mobility dramatically. It will affect private players, commercial players, and public players. Look, when you take your cars in 5, 10, or 15 years, you will have an increasing number of assistance systems that will help you drive safely and better. Ultimately, you will step into a robotaxi that brings you without a driver to the city center. Commercial players, already today, use autonomous equipment in farming, in forestry, in mining. And this will become more and more widespread in the future. And last but not least, public players like cities or governments are highly interested in autonomous vehicles because it allows to reduce congestion, it solves a lot of parking problems, and improves the state of environment.
In an interview with ARK Invest, Musk gave a timeline of what he expects for fully autonomous cars will be ready to hit the road. Before we take a listen to that, though, I want to bring in Tasha Keeney. She's an analyst at ARK Investments who was with Elon Musk when he said this. So first of all, tell us how this whole podcast came about.
Yeah, so actually through Twitter, Musk's favorite platform, he saw a clip of me talking about Tesla. At ARK, we do a lot of original research, and we focused a lot on their autonomous data advantage. So he messaged me and he said, great analysis, and then I asked him to be on our podcast.
But he messaged you.
Wow.
He did.
Yeah, like a DM.
Yes.
And why you keep the DMs open.
And what did you do?
So we asked him to be on the podcast, and to our surprise and happiness, he agreed. But he's familiar with ARK because we've been very vocal about Tesla for a long time. Kathy, our CIO, had written a letter when they were thinking of going private, so he was familiar.
And
with
asking them not to go private. It's one of your biggest holdings. You have to rebalance and make sure all that kind of stuff. So and you are a huge bull on the stock. You have a $4,000 long-term price target. Still fair to say?
Yes, it's one of our top positions.
Just to get that out there. Okay, so now let's dive in.
As you can see, there's no driver in the front. I'm not nervous. Are you nervous? I'm not nervous. Here we are, riding in a minivan with nobody in the front seat, with pedestrians and cyclists and other vehicles out on a public road. It's a surreal experience. Google has been working on self-driving cars for over 10 years now. In 2016, Google spun out its project as a separate company called WAYMO, and since then it's been testing hundreds of vehicles here in Arizona, mostly for an Uber-like ride-hailing service called WAYMO One. A few years ago, I had the chance to ride in one of WAYMO's driverless vehicles, but it was on a private and closed course. And since then, most of the trips that WAYMO does in its autonomous vehicles, including the one that we took last year, have trained safety drivers in the front seat.